My name is Nathan Kasick, and this is my presentation on perceptions and culture. To start things off, we'll talk about what web-based social cognition is. Web-based social cognition is how people understand and interpret social interactions and relationships within online environments. It's all about studying how people perceive, process, and respond to social information within digital spaces such as social media, internet forums, or just any sort of virtual community in general. So, how does culture relate to our perceptions? Well, culture has a massive influence upon perceptions. For instance, culture has a massive influence on social norms. It defines what behaviors are and are not appropriate within their said culture. Cultures also have a massive impact on stereotypes. Culture can influence biases that we hold. Generalization of a culture can negatively or positively impact how we perceive that said culture as a whole, or cultures in general, all cultures. Culture also has a certain way that it must be understood in. There is such a thing as cultural context. Cultural context affects how we understand social cues and behaviors within our own culture and within other cultures. Culture also has a big influence upon a culture as a whole's emotional expression. Different cultures have varied norms of expressing emotion, ranging from some cultures emphasizing heavy expression of emotions, while others emphasize heavy restraint of their emotions. On a more individual level, culture also affects identity. Culture also shapes how we view ourselves and our place in the world, with some cultures emphasizing a more collectivist approach and other cultures emphasize a more independent approach. Culture also has a massive effect on that individual's self-esteem. Culture values also influence how we evaluate ourselves. Within some cultures, they emphasize a more lowly and humble approach, while other cultures emphasize a more self-promotion and prideful approach. Culture also has a massive effect on roles within their own culture. It sets expectations for different social roles, such as gender roles or professional roles, that definitely establish a hierarchy, of sorts within that said culture. So as you can see, different cultures absolutely vary within their impact of perceptions. And I apologize, I covered this, so we'll skip over that one. Compare and contrast. So as far as choosing a culture to compare and contrast, I chose to compare the American culture with the Mexican, Hispanic, Latino culture. I've been blessed to be able to go on 4 mission trips down to Mexico. The first being in Costa Rica, the second to Tijuana, and the latter 2 being to Chihuahua, Mexico. And one thing that I would definitely love to compare and contrast, given the brevity of this video, is that America, it goes without saying, is most definitely, we're a selfish culture. We're a very selfish culture. We are very self-promoting. We heavily emphasize looking out for ourselves, and we'll definitely undermine others and step over others to get what we want. We are definitely a culture like that compared to Mexico or the Hispanic culture, which definitely sees itself as a collectivist more culture. People are just simply more lowly and humble and just they don't have such a need to feel so significant. They're content within their significance. To put it in an illustration, in American culture, we view ourselves as a giant clock tower. Every individual is their own independent clock tower. Well, in Mexico, every individual views themselves as a cog within one big cultural clock tower, and they're content in that. on to our next slide here. Surprises. Was there anything that surprised me? Yes. Within my earlier visits down to Mexico, I was most definitely surprised within their culture of how very content and how joyful they are as a culture, despite not even having nearly as much abundance as America does. Within America, we have as much as we have. We probably have the most out of any country on planet Earth, yet we're so sorrowful, we're so full of pity, we're so discontent, we have no peace. But down in Mexico, collectively, this can't be said for every individual, but collectively, there's a lot of joy and there's a lot of contentment down there, despite not having so much. So perhaps they're onto something that we're not. As far as any of my perceptions have changed, back then it did, as far as our view of American contentment and Hispanic contentment back upon my first visits to Mexico. But I would probably say that nothing has changed upon being blessed in my personal experience to go down on these mission trips and see our culture compared and contrast to the Mexican culture. But I'm always very blessed to be reminded. I'm very blessed to be reminded that I don't always have to be so obsessed with significance. I'm always blessed to be reminded that even when I don't feel like I have very much, I still have most than others. I'm very blessed to be reminded that humility will always be the higher and better road, especially approved by God, compared to the more American norm, which is self-promotion and looking out for oneself. So that is my presentation today on culture. Here's my source. I appreciate you for watching. God bless you and have a great week.